House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Michael McCaul of Texas. Thank you so much for coming in, Congressman. So President Biden is now here. He went to NATO and Poland, and he and his administration are touting the fact that he did present a united Western front with NATO. But after Ukrainian President Zelensky's historic speech to Congress last month, you said that history will judge us if we don't act now and if we don't act strongly. So in the aftermath of President Biden's speech, do you think that the United States is meeting the moment?
You know, I don't believe there are any deliverables that came out of this NATO summit, and that's my highest criticism. What Ukraine needs right now, and I talked to the ambassador right before the show, are these S-300 anti-aircraft missiles, like our Patriot batteries. Slovakia has these. I thought that by the end of this trip, they would announce that we're sending in all these S-300s into Ukraine to help them fight the good fight. This is in Israel. We need to give David the slingshot. And what the slingshot really is the S-300. And that's what we're not giving them right now.
My understanding is that Slovakia has said yes, that country will give Ukraine their S-300s, which is an anti-aircraft missile system, but they won't do it until NATO supplies them with something to replenish their systems.
Correct. And so why wasn't that worked out in this trip? I mean, why did we pledge to give them our Patriot battery system, anti-aircraft battery system? What they want is a backup, just like with the MiGs in Poland. All they wanted were 2 F-16s. Why couldn't we have done that so we could send the MiGs into Ukraine? Why couldn't we do this with Slovakia and other Eastern European NATO allies to send more and more of these S-300s? You know, when they talk about no-fly zone, we can't do that. NATO can't do it directly. That will put us in direct conflict with the Russians. But we can give them the tools to create their own no-fly zone.
So I want to ask about President Biden's speech in Poland yesterday, saying that it seemed as though he was calling for regime change in Russia, saying Putin cannot remain in power. The White House, of course, walked that back, saying that is not the stated American policy. Was it a mistake for President Biden to say that? He ad-libbed it at the end of his speech.
Well, I think regime change is up to the Russian people. I agree with Senator Mark Warner that Putin is guilty of regime change in Ukraine. You know, and the fact is, anytime the United States has spoke out for a regime change, it hasn't worked out so well. That's not the policy of the United States here. Policy of the United States is to defeat the Russians in Ukraine. And you know, I know it was off the cuff, but whatever the president says it carries a lot of weight. When he said minor incursion, that carried a lot of weight. In this case, it sends a very provocative message to Mr. Putin. If we're so worried about provoking him that we couldn't even send MiGs into Ukraine, how is this any different? In fact, I would say it's more provocative than sending MiGs into Ukraine.
Was it appropriate for White House officials to walk that back?
I think so. Unfortunately, Dana, we're not talking about the issue at hand, and that is giving the Ukraine people what they need to fight this war. Instead, we're talking about the president's gaffe that he made at his speech.
I want to ask about China, because we heard this week from Chinese President Xi Jinping saying that the country would play a constructive role in brokering peace. What do you make of that? Do you see any evidence in China doing that at all?
I don't trust them. They're built on deception. Remember the Beijing Olympics, this unholy alliance, arm in arm, hand in hand, standing together, Mr. Putin and Chairman Xi, China, basically saying we have an unlimited partnership, denouncing democracy and freedom and territorial aggression. Xi calling out NATO aggression, Western aggression, Putin defending China with their ambitions with respect to Taiwan. The next shoe that could drop would be Taiwan. He is watching what is happening in Ukraine right now in terms of what is my calculus, what's going to be my next move in terms of Taiwan. We cannot make the mistake we've made in Ukraine and wait till after an invasion to arm them. We need to start arming Taiwan right now.
Afghanistan. This week, talked about this with Senator Warner. Taliban authorities in Afghanistan, suspended schooling for girls. You are a very vocal critic of the way the Biden administration handled Afghanistan. What is your response to seeing what the Taliban is doing, not allowing girls over 6th grade to get educated?
It's one of the saddest things I've had to witness. I think it's the ultimate betrayal. The way we left Americans behind enemy lines, Afghan partners behind enemy lines are being executed by the Taliban right now. But I think most and foremost, these girls and the women left behind in a society that they've never lived under Sharia law. So they don't know what that even means. And to see them getting pulled out of school because girls cannot be educated.
Is there anything America can do at this point?
We're helpless. I think we made the. I wanted a residual force. I didn't agree with giving up Bagram Air Base. We don't have any ISR capability. No eyes on the ground. We have little impact. I guess we could try to force the Taliban through other means to change this policy, but it's very difficult to do. This is very. It's so much of their culture. And again, it's one of the saddest things to watch.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And Russia says it's turning